community in Fredericksburg is growing, and we know that people choose to live here, and for very good reason. It's important that we have resources in place so that people can take care of themselves, so that our economy can keep moving, so that this community can continue to thrive. And this is our opportunity to help them stay well and stay part of the community as contributing members.
Please join us in keeping Fredericksburg and Gillespie County special. Be Texas friendly. Share the road. Put litter in its place. Respect private property. And protect our dark skies. Thank you for caring about our community.
This is Fbg.Live. From touchdowns and concerts to weddings and Christmas parades. Live video production right here in Fredericksburg, Texas. Live, local, here for you. Fbg.Live, capturing your moment for generations to enjoy.
All right, if I could get everybody to find a seat, we'll go ahead and get started. Well, thank you for being here, kicking off the new year at Coffee with the City Manager. We do have a pretty light crowd. If you can't see the screen behind me, get a little bit closer if you would. We're kicking off with a number of presentations. So every year we typically do a year-end review presentation to the City Council for both Fire EMS and PD. This year we decided to do that for a number of different departments. So you will be hearing from Public Works today, a recap of 2025, a projection of our water supply. We'll talk about a number of projects and so forth. The Parks Department, Development Services, a lot of development going on around town. You can see that. We'll talk a lot about that, tell you what's going on, what's coming up. We'll also have our Finance Department presenting a lot of information here in just a little bit. So Happy New Year to everyone. It's hard to believe the holidays are already over. We're looking forward to a very exciting new year. We have a lot of big initiatives coming up that I'm super excited to start working on. Top of the list would be moving into our new City Hall. I think everybody in the room probably knows that we purchased the old University Center and we have been remodeling that space for our new City Hall. We will hopefully hold our first council meeting in the new council chambers, the first meeting in February. Moving into the facility, moving city staff into the facility probably toward the end of February or sometime in March, so it'll be a work in progress as we move through that. We also have a council election coming up. 2 seats up, or actually 3, 2 council seats and the mayor. I mentioned last time the mayor, Gerald Hoover, is not running. It's my understanding we've already had 1 candidate file this morning. Today is the first day of filing. That goes through February 13th. So if you're interested in running for council, go pick up a packet, get your name in there. Fredericksburg Citizen University. How many people do we have in the room that have gone through or are in Fredericksburg Citizen University? Okay, so a number of folks. A number of these folks, Cheryl being one of them, also ran for council, have been on boards and commissions. So that's really the intent of that program, to educate folks that are interested in getting a lot more involved in the city. So thank you all for being involved. We have a little bit smaller class this year. This will be the 3rd year. We have 14 individuals, and we have opened that up county-wide now. There's been some interest from county residents in being involved in that. We don't want to exclude everyone, so we have 14, and I think there are 4 people in that class that live outside the city limits. So if you live outside the city limits and you're interested in going through that, please contact our city secretary and we can get you plugged into that program. It's a really good educational opportunity. So just quickly, guest speakers. We have a number of guest speaker requests, and we have a number of guest speakers that have verified they will be joining us. We'll hear from Judge Jones sometime in the next couple of months. Next month. Okay, we also have our TxDOT district engineer Tucker Carlson out of the Austin district that will be joining us. By request, we've also heard you would like to hear from a representative with Create Healthy and also the hospital. Am I missing anyone?
Scott Fair.
Scott Fair. Well, I've got his name right here. I'm not sure why I didn't mention Scott Fair. Will also be a guest speaker. So at the end, after presentations, if you have someone in mind that you would like to hear from, just let us know and we will try to get them here. I had a question from a council member about our recent town hall series. We really started that up a little bit earlier in the summer last year. And we started bumping up against the holidays after doing about 4 of those. The weather wasn't cooperating, the days were getting shorter. So it was difficult to hold those. We're going to start those back up in the springtime. We have 12 different areas, I think, this time, a little bit larger areas. So we'll be making our way around town with another town hall series, and those evolve as the year goes by. The topics change just a little bit, but we'll be talking a lot about our transportation projects that we've proposed, that we first looked at in 2017, primarily, also giving updates and giving people the opportunity to ask questions just like you ask here. So with that, we will jump right into our summary presentations. Again, take notes. These presentations will be available if you're interested in taking a look at this information. But again, this is our way of trying to educate the community and let you know what's going on, what happened in 2025, and what's on tap for 2026. So we will kick off with Development Services and our Development Services Director, Cliff Cross. Cliff.
Thank you, Clinton. Appreciate it. I think I've met pretty much everybody in the room, but as Clinton said, I'm Cliff Cross. I'm the Development Services Director, and I've been here now a little over 6 months, and what a beautiful community, and I'm so excited to be here because there's a lot going on. So I know many of you probably watched this last week at the City Council meeting, but I think we're going to give you a summary report, and I'm going to kick it off in reference to what our departments have been up to over the last year and where we're looking to go. So I really just threw out a bunch of numbers initially to the council, and these numbers are not the full yearly report. These are a quarterly report, so these reflected our activity from July through September of last year, which was our third quarter in a sense. And I really like to do that because in the Development Services Department, we're really a permit-generated department. Our activity and our services provided are based on permits and activity that come in on a daily basis. So this really is a comparison of the second quarter to the third quarter. So when we look from July to September in terms of zoning cases that we processed, and these are traditionally the rezoning request, the conditional use permit request, the land use assignment, the zoning assignments with the annexation that was proposed. These were the type of things that the Planning and Zoning Commission considered, and they are the recommending body to council. So they considered 16 zoning cases between that time frame. 14 were approved, 2 were tabled, and ultimately they were carried over. So when I say tabled, they go to them, they need more information, they come back, then ultimately they're required to make a recommendation to council. So ultimately all 14 of those cases went before the mayor and council for consideration. We had 7 zoning board of adjustment cases. These are the cases that go before. They're an appeal of the determination of the zoning administrator or the department director, myself. It goes to the ZBA. They say, hey, you're crazy. You're not interpreting the code correctly. So there's another set of eyes that get to take a look at it. Of those, the other thing that's really considered by the ZBA, and it's a very popular one here, are the special exceptions associated with the short-term rentals in the zoning districts that require them to go through that special exception process. So they considered 7 cases during that time frame. 2 of them were a special exception. 3 ultimately of those 7 cases that were presented were approved, 2 denied, and 1 tabled. Then we have the HRB, which is the Historic Review Board. They're the board that considers the certificate of appropriateness for permits that are issued for exterior alterations and things like that within the historic districts. And primarily, I think the one that's very important to folks is our historic shopping overlay district, which is basically downtown. So we want to make sure we preserve the character there. We take it to them, they review it. Of those 15 cases, 14 were approved, 1 was denied. Then we have the administrative review of those historic properties, which basically comes to staff here. And we had 37 of those that came before us, 13 commercial, 24 residential. So what's that mean? basically, these are maintenance types of permits that are issued. Someone's replacing their roof with a similar material and look roof. HRB, the review board, they think we're smart enough to know that a gray shingle is replaced by a gray shingle is good, and we don't take them before the HRB. And then in terms of internal operations of the department, we had 83 plan reviews. These are the permit reviews for commercial construction, residential construction. A lot of these are associated with single-family residential development that you may see in terms of new home construction, Sonoma Oaks, Friendship Oaks, things like that. So we had 83 plan reviews, 53 of those were residential, 30 were commercial, 1 major. The 1 major obviously is associated with the Muse project because that's a large commercial development. In terms of permits that were issued, we had 9 commercial permits that were issued that totaled approximately $288,840 of revenue generated in permit and plan review fees. 4 of those were associated with new construction. The Home 2 Suites, Discount Tire are 2 of the primary commercial developments that came in. We had 53 residential permits that were issued that were associated with new construction, which generated roughly $365,311. So new construction does generate a significant amount of permit fees for the department and the city as a whole. Then we had 26 residential additions, alterations, accessory permits that were issued, totaling around $3,000. Of that, we had 587 inspections that were conducted by the department, approximately 220 in July, 179 in August, 188 in September. Of all those, 25 failed, but I will add a note to that. Of those 25 failed, those generally are a re-inspection. They come back and they pass. That may be something as simple as you go out there and you look at a water heater, it doesn't have a pressure relief valve, the inspector says you need to put it on, they come back and it then passes. So where I'm going with that, I just really wanted to do an analysis to compare the third quarter to the second quarter and what we're generating in fees. In the third quarter, we generated approximately $675,000 in permit fees and applications, and that's compared to quarter 2, which was roughly $674,000. So pretty consistent, right? We get about the same every 3 months. So the other thing that we do in the department, obviously, which is significant here, is we also address the short-term rentals here in the city. We have determined that we roughly have 1,008 short-term rentals. It's becoming easier to understand the numbers because now we are within the first full year of our new MGO system, so we were able to track those a little bit better. We have roughly 1,008 short-term rentals in all of our zones. We conducted roughly 334 inspections over quarter 3. Of those, it was associated with 6 transfers. So what that means is you have a change of name or a change of a management company that takes care of that individual short-term rental. We generated roughly $159,000 in short-term rental fees, which was a result of addressing 293 short-term rentals. We registered roughly 232 non-conforming short-term rentals, so there is a fee associated with that. We generated roughly $46,000 during that time frame. We had 16 ownership transfers, which means it was sold and continued under a new ownership group. That requires a fee as part of that, so we generated roughly $4,800. And then we did 11 re-inspections, which generated $825. The same as with permits that are associated with the department. Really what we want to focus on here is the 90-day revenue generation associated with short-term rentals. During that time frame of quarter 3, we generated roughly $211,000 in revenue for the department and the city in conducting those operations as compared to the $218,000 in quarter 2. So where I'm going with that, we're pretty consistent, right? We're generating about the same every quarter associated with the short-term rental operations. The other thing I touched on is subdivisions and new residential development. I know is something that we really focus on here for the city and the department. And we have a lot of new home construction. You have Sonoma Oaks Phase 1. You have Friendship Oaks, which is a large multi-phase development. And then we have other developments that have been focused on, such as Trails at Windcrest and the Frieden development. What I really wanted to focus on here with this is to show how they are moving forward with the construction of the homes associated with each individual subdivision. The point I'm making is I want to make sure that we show that we're active, right? And that they are active in continuing to move forward. So obviously Sonoma Oaks, and those of you that live next to it know that it's been constructed at a pretty rapid pace. They originally had roughly 52 lots out there. They have all 52 permits issued. We expect that they will have Phase 1 completed and all the occupancy permits ready by early spring of this year. Friendship Oaks, that was a 421 lot development. They've recorded approximately 350 of those, and they have 200 homes that have been completed and under construction. I think everybody can see that they've done a lot of infrastructure improvement out there, and we expect there's going to be a lot of permits coming in for conditional or additional construction of those homes out there. But what I really wanted to focus on, sometimes the question comes up, why are these not moving, right? Why are some of them not active? Trails of Windcrest, I think, is one of the ones that people focus on. It was a large multi-lot development, 339 lots. They are constructing the infrastructure for the development out there, which means once that infrastructure is in, because that's a developer-generated subdivision, they are going to start pulling permits and constructing rather quickly. So we expect a lot of activity at Trails of Windcrest in 2026 as we move forward. The other thing I wanted to focus on was just to give an update and a rough map. We are working on some mapping in the department that will be available to the public on our website as we move forward through the MGO system. But what we really wanted to focus on was some of the major activity that's going on throughout the city. As you can see, we identified the various subdivisions, Trails of Windcrest, Harmony Hills, the Muse, obviously, which is a large commercial development, Friendship Oaks phases 1 through 6. As I had indicated, there's going to be a lot of activity out there now that the infrastructure is going in. We talked about the Waldorf, obviously, is something that everybody is interested in. We approved the development plat a couple months back, so that's a project that could potentially move forward if they meet the agreement requirements associated with the development plat approval. Really what we wanted to show here is that a lot of activity is happening to the south and to the west of the city, and that's probably because there's a lot of larger tracts that are out there, and that's of interest because of runoff issues and things that have been discussed. So we want to continue to track this, but provide the update of where we are. So kind of what's gone on the last year and the last quarter. We provide you that update, but where are we going as a department? I think that's what everybody really wants to keep up to date on. So in terms of the departmental operations, we have improved the workflow system with our MGO, which is the MyGov online tracking system. That is the system that processes permits, processes applications. We have staff on board now that are very familiar with the MGO system. Susanna and I have been looking at improving it, and she is very knowledgeable of it, and we are improving the workflow. Long story short, what we expect that will do is make us more efficient in not only processing applications, bring us into 2026 a little more, but I think the most important thing is it's going to provide us a better ability to be accountable for what goes on and report with the department. Why is that so important? The adoption of the comprehensive plan, the discussion about adopting a new strategic plan. This is a reporting tool that allows us to report and update everybody on how we're meeting the goals of the strategic plan and the comprehensive plan of the city. As I had indicated, Susanna is on board. She is our new assistant director. She's been here 4 months now already. I think many of you have met her. She's very knowledgeable and doing a great job for us. We also did bring on a new STR specialist over the last month and a half. She's catching on very quickly and doing a great job for us. The other thing that's been talked about, and you've seen it before council, we've been talking about doing some ordinance updates. I think one of the big ones that's coming up is the time frame for resubmittals of applications for rezonings, conditional use permits, things like that. Most communities have a time frame that if you submit it and you are denied, you have to have basically a cooling off period before you come back and do a new application. Our current code doesn't allow that or doesn't require that. We're addressing that and trying to remain consistent with other communities in terms of resubmittal timeframes. And it really is it's something that really is very important in allowing for and ensuring that people just do not make applications to make applications. And then some of the other amendments we've talked about, tree preservation, I know is becoming a very popular topic. Tree preservation is very important. I think through the years we've regulated that through the site plan process and really only focused on that as part of a commercial development process. We should have one across the city. We should be a tree city is where I'm going with that. And I think this helps staff ensure that we get there. Another one would be the fee structure. I think we're a little behind in our fees. We're working on updating our fee structure to make sure we're consistent with our neighboring communities. The other thing, and this isn't a zoning amendment, but this would be an update of our ICC, our International Code, and our trade codes. In other words, these are the codes that regulate building permits and construction. We currently use the 2015 codes. We should update it to, at the very least, to the 2021 codes. And the reason we're looking to do that is because you really want to be within 2 cycles of the most recently adopted code. The 2024 codes are out. So if we adopt the 2021s, we become much more compliant with the most recent code. Why is that important? You as a community, it affects your insurance premiums. The closer you are to the most recent cycle, the insurance service organization basically gives your community a credit, could result in reduced insurance premiums for all of you. So we're looking to do that, and there's really not that big of a difference between the codes, but we need to make sure we have the most recent one updated and available for the community. The big thing I think a lot of people are interested in as well, and as a staff we're focusing on, we posted the request for qualifications for an update of our Unified Development Code. Really what the UDC is, we're compiling all of our applicable development codes and regulations such as our zoning ordinance, our subdivision regulations, our sign code, tree preservation ordinance, landscaping. All the development regulation ordinances are going to be compiled into one document, which will make us more efficient and much more transparent in why we're doing what we're doing. So that's going to be a large project that's going to take roughly 24 months to complete. We published the RFQ. We surprisingly received 13 responses from national consultants to assist us in that process. So you as a community, we're going to keep you updated on that as we move forward with the construction of the UDC. And talking about speakers, we may come back before you later in the year after we select the consultant, and when we're getting into the process of the UDC, we may bring our consultant with us to come and talk to you where we are in that process. So with that, that's development services, and I think we'll probably address questions at the end. So I'll hand it off to Chris.
Clicker. Morning. Thanks for the opportunity to share the presentation with you. I think as Cliff just mentioned, questions at the end, but if there is a question as I go through the slides, feel free, we can address that instead of having to click back. So I've broke up my presentation for Public Works and Utilities by department. So there's 5 departments in Public Works and Utilities. I'll start with electric. I won't go into each individual project, but basically I'm sharing projects that we completed in 25 or started in 25, and then some trend lines as well on what we're seeing on the utility side, seeing it, the solid waste, what we've collected at the landfill, and so forth. So going through these projects, starting with the electric department, I did some rehab on some underground utilities up in the Sandcastle area. This is a subdivision that was constructed 30 plus years ago. Did a little bit of underground rewiring and conductor work there. One of the initiatives years ago that was really pushed by some council members and community leaders was to take all the overhead electric lines off of Main Street, particularly the Golden Blocks and beyond, several blocks east and west of the Golden Blocks. So we worked again on a little project there at Hondo's in the bank, PNC Bank, and we now feed that from the back. So it takes some time, takes about several years for each block, but as we see opportunities, we certainly want to work with those property owners to get the electric off of Main and served from the back. So the electric department did some work there. It takes a couple of years after we move our electric infrastructure for telecom to follow. So it's not like it's an overnight change, but certainly continue to work on that throughout town. Completed an inventory for all of our electric infrastructure. Basically, it allows our crews to work on and update the infrastructure mapping electronically on tablets in the field, in the office. If we're responding to an emergency, we can see what that infrastructure looks like there from a tablet rather than going to the old paper maps. And then just some additional customers that we added on the commercial side, 5 new electric customers. I've mentioned this several times. Our electric boundary is set. It was set in 1975. Our neighboring electric providers are Central Texas, so as the city continues to grow, that boundary does not move. It stays the same, set by the PUC. So Central Texas serves those, but we do have some infill lots, some new commercial customers that do come on board. The bottom graph here just shows the trend line of overall electric sold or purchased by our providers from 2014 to 2025. So you can see there's a little bit of growth, but not a ton of growth. One thing you'll see on the utility side is it is really the trend lines for utilities is really weather dependent, and so you'll see hot, cold, rainy on both electric and the water side. Might have to advance it. There you go. Sanitary on the sanitation department. So some of the projects, construction of cells 12 and 13. That does include a customer convenience center where basically metal drop off, scrap metal and so forth is collected, as well as a grit trap. So grit trap, just a brief explanation. So fats, oils, and greases that are collected from restaurants. Instead of that material going into our sanitary sewer collection system, they collect that in a trap, and then we have haulers, commercial haulers that collect that, bring it to the landfill, and essentially it's mixed up with some mulch, organic matter, and then it absorbs that fat oil, and then it goes into the landfill, is deposited into the landfill. The construction of cells in 12 and 13 are near completion. We just got the final report from our consultant to submit to the state for final approval here earlier this week. So that cell will probably start depositing trash in the next 30 to 45 days. Replaced all the trash receptacles along Main Street. So They look really nice. They're all uniform. Hopefully they'll last the city a long time. That was a nice project. And then applied for a $4.8 million grant through ACOG for a transfer station. So cells 12 and 13 are the last cells we'll be constructing. We're moving towards this transfer station. We've talked about this not only to this group, but to other groups in the past and presentations, but essentially transferring the solid waste, doing the collection like we've done in the past, but transferring that solid waste to another larger facility like San Antonio or Austin, and these big facilities that take that material. We had hoped to hear back at the end of December on that grant. We are reaching out to ACOG. We've reached out to them a couple times. We still haven't heard word. So we'll continue to follow up and see whether that grant, whether we are a recipient of that grant or not. Solid waste, we had just over, or just under 37,000 tons deposited last year. It's about 3,600 tons less than the previous year. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One, we have increased our tipping fees at the landfill over the last 2 years. Really, we took an initiative to increase those fees because we were seeing material from outside the county, from commercial haulers, bringing that material into the Gillespie County facility just because our rates were so low. So that material decrease, I think, is a result of increasing those rates, and those folks are no longer bringing that material here. So solid waste trends, again, from 2003, so quite a bit of data, but you can see the trend line, again, over the last 2 years that we have seen a decrease in material year over year. Recycled materials, a little bit hard to see here probably, but see some of the trend lines on overall material recycled. Again, this is in tons. The gray portion of the bar is cardboard, so that's the biggest recyclable that we see at the recycle center. And then the yellow portion of the bar is metals. So again, the metal, scrap metal drop off at the landfill. Blue at the top is plastics, and aluminum down at the bottom of the bar. Won't go into all the details here, but our stormwater vegetation management department, we had a lot of rain this year. They worked really hard, and we see a lot of growth around electric lines that they're actively working on right now. But here's just some rough numbers on the work that they completed. Again, it includes tree trimming around electric lines, right-of-ways. I mentioned at the council meeting, we even trim for the school buses, so the school routes, identify and work with the FISD on locations that might be rubbing school buses. Erosion, we saw some of that. We're still working on some of that from the July 4th rain in various areas, but we did see some erosion based on some of the rain we did receive. And just various drainage projects throughout town. The street department, probably the biggest project is the annual paving project. So just a recap on that. So it was approximately 9.5 miles of repaving. That does include the new soccer field parking lot that was constructed here recently. New roads that we will take on after a 24-month warranty period is a little over a mile of new roads. That includes the Post Oak Road extension there by the middle school. Sonoma, Phase 1, which was mentioned earlier by Cliff. Friendship Oaks, again, this is the extension of Creek Street and the project just south of Friendship Lane. And then a small section on North Cherry, 1010 North Cherry. The street department was active on various city initiatives, including the parking lot that you drove by this morning, the Totch House and Pioneer Pavilion, the road closures for special events, major public works projects. If you recall, we had a sizable hailstorm at the beginning of the spring. Street department worked for several weeks cleaning that up, along with our stormwater vegetation management department. Sidewalks, council has allocated funds every year for the last 12-ish years for improvements to sidewalks. So that doesn't just include new sidewalks, but it also includes repair of existing. So we repaired some trip hazards on Main Street, both in the pavers that are on the islands or the corners. And then we also worked with precision concrete cutting last year to remove some of what we call the toe catchers on Main Street. We've actually completed phase 2 of that already this year as part of fiscal year 26. So that's a really exciting project. Between $30,000 to $7,000 is what we're spending, and this year we spent a little bit more after seeing the results of last year's project. But that comes out of that sidewalk fund allocation. And then some street restriping, some refreshing, some new striping in various locations. We've allocated some funds again this year, so we'll kick that off probably in the spring, early summer, right after school gets out. Last department, in Public Works Utilities, the Water Department, several projects, just listed some of the major projects. Our Water Wastewater Master Plan Update project, we hope to finish that here in the next 45 days or so. We have a meeting scheduled with a consultant here in the next couple weeks to kind of finalize a draft and look at the last draft of the report. So that will generate a lot of CIP projects coming out of the new models and kind of showing what the results are of some of this development, of future development, what we're proposing, whether in the next 5 years, 10 years, even 15 years out. We completed a permit renewal for our water reclamation facility. That was submitted to TCQ. Still under review. We have not heard back from them. That's a 5-year cycle, so every 5 years you're required to submit a permit renewal. Homing Lane lift station improvements, so completed an improvement to that lift station, which was initially put in just to serve the Bob White street. So obviously with the middle school, with some of the apartments, with the addition of Sonoma Oaks, completed a lift station improvement for that area. Our 2-inch main replacements, this continues. This has been a project we've been doing for about 4 to 5 years now. Really excited. I was actually with the water department yesterday. So this is not only a project that we're doing with contractors, but we're also doing in-house. We laid a little over 180 feet yesterday, so really excited about that. That was fun being with those guys. Hardworking crew, well-oiled machine, watching them work, and I even got to stab some pipe and move some sand around. So, you know, we talk about in the office, some days we leave the office and we're like, what did we accomplish? Well, out in the field, you can see what you accomplished, so that was really exciting. West Live Oak, this was a extension of water and sewer utilities as part of an annexation that council initiated several years back. That project is near completion. We have one small sanitary sewer line extension to complete off of Smokehouse Road. The installation of standby power generation at all of our lift stations, our major lift stations and our major water facilities. Again, not only covering storms we saw like in February of 21, but summers, rolling blackouts. Luckily we haven't seen that, but covering any outage that might occur to make sure that our water and sewer facilities are up and running during those times. And then probably the bottom one here, really excited about, we did a lot of data collection on a future groundwater supply for the community. We'll be working with council here probably the next 30 days on working on making an offer on this future groundwater supply for our city. So some trend lines and what we're seeing. So this is pumpage from 2014 to 2025. Again, you can see the spike there. I think that was in 22. That was a really, really dry year. We had just over 13 inches of rain total. So again, somewhat dependent on weather and what we see, whether hot or cooler, rainy periods of time. But then also you can see some of the growth in there too. So we have grown as a city, and obviously water is a part of that. The two monitoring wells that we look at as far as our aquifer and the health of the aquifer, this is the Canal well field. This is over 12 months. So again, starting in approximately December or earlier January of 25 all the way through 25 and beginning of 26. So you can see we did see the rains there in the summer. You can see some of the spikes and obviously kind of leveled out, so the aquifer did recharge some. You can see where we started getting drier the last 45 to 60 days, how that's kind of come down. But I would still say that we are in better shape than we were this time last year just based on the aquifer. And then the old San Antonio Road, well, we don't see the response to rainfalls quite as quickly in this portion of the aquifer, but you can still see some of the positive trends there, and particularly a positive trend here in the last 30 to 45 days. And that's all I have. So, Tim?
I have one question about...
Hold on, Tim. Let's get you a mic. Sorry.
One question about the solid waste department. For those of us who do our own yard work in our yards with our brush, et cetera, what are the city's plans for the recycling center that's over off of Ufer Street in relation to that center itself for collecting recyclables and also for the brush pile up behind the warehouse?
Sure. We don't anticipate the yard trimming drop-off to change at all with the transfer station. As far as the recycling center, where you would bring sorted material, that will likely change. That facility would not continue operation. With the transfer station, I didn't really mention this, we would look to go to curbside recycling for our in-city customers. So our solid waste customers in town, we would look to push curbside recycling. What that means is you wouldn't sort it. It would go into one bin, just like your solid waste goes into a bin. It would be collected in a very similar truck that's picking up your solid waste right now, brought to the landfill. It would be put into trailers, brought to these large facilities that have sorting of those recyclables. So it really eliminates the need for our recycling center. Now, with that being said, there are citizens outside of the city limits that don't have our curbside recycling. So there's some evaluation in working with the county potentially to see. One of the thoughts is that we have a drop-off, unsorted drop-off out at the landfill. And maybe there's a fee associated with that for county residents to drop off, again, to take care of the transport part of that recyclable. Dr. Hermerson?
Just a reminder, we are streaming this live, so even if you think you can speak loud enough for everyone in the room, they can't hear you at home, so please wait for a mic to get to you so our folks at Fbg.Live can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With this curbside recycling, will the containers that citizens are provided with be large enough to accept cardboard boxes? I mean, that you said was the majority of the recycling that you got in were cardboard, and even when I break it down, it's really hard to fit large boxes into the trash cans that we have right now.
They would be 97 gallon or 96 gallons, so the same size receptacle as what your solid waste is currently. I mean, we have some smaller receptacles, but we're phasing those smaller ones, the 64 gallon and the 32 gallon, we're phasing those out. So it would be the 96. You know, maybe again, there's the drop-off facility that we would have. So, you know, maybe a in-town resident just shows their utility bill or something and is able to drop off larger, bulk cardboard. All right. Next will be parks.
Thank you, Chris. My name's Andrea Schmidt, and I'm with the Parks and Recreation Department here with the city. This morning, I wanted to start going through our capital improvement projects that we completed in 2025. We're very thankful to City Council for funding these projects. I'm not going to go through every single one individually. I just wanted to point out a few. So I wanted to start with the purchase of the equipment. We were able to purchase several specialized equipment this past year, including things that helped us on our ball fields. And that's really made a difference in just keeping the ball fields safe and being able to maintain them at a high level. We've heard from some of our users that they're some of the best ball fields they've ever played on. So I want to give kudos to the park maintenance staff and our ability to be able to use this specialized equipment to make our fields look better. The sand volleyball court renovations out here at Lady Bird Johnson, that was actually done through donations over the last several years that had built up in a special revenue account. So that was all done by donations. If you have time, stop by and check it out. It looks a lot nicer. We also repaired a bunch of leaks we had in the plaster and problems we had in the plaster here at Park Pool. The majority of that work was actually done under warranty, so it didn't cost the taxpayers any money. We hope that we'll be set for the next 3 years, maybe 3 to 5 years, so we don't have to make any more repairs to plaster in our swimming pools. I also wanted to point out we were able to put some shade over the baby pool out at Town Pool. It was getting the water, it's a smaller body of water, so it gets hot a lot faster. And every afternoon, the parents were complaining they couldn't put the kids in the pool because it was too hot. So we were able to put a shade over that, and now that can be used again. And then the last thing I wanted to point out that I'm really excited about is we switched our Christmas lights at Market Square to an annual lease program. So what we had been doing is purchasing some of the most expensive lights that were out there. We had a company come and install them. They'd stay up for 2 or 3 years, and then we'd pull them all down and put some more expensive lights up. What happened is every time we would have a windstorm or any issues on the square, a branch fell, we had lights hanging. It seems like almost every week we'd had lights hanging all over the square that had to be repaired. With this new annual lease, the lights are all going to come down. They're actually scheduled to come down January 26th, and I think it'll just clean up the look of the square during the year. The next year in November, we'll put all the Christmas lights back up again. We were able to buy much less expensive lights. They have a 3-month warranty, so they're good while the lights are up, so it really didn't cost us any extra money. It didn't save us any money, but I think it made things a lot easier to maintain on the square during the year. Okay, these next few, These next few slides are going to be some trends over the last 9 years of reservations that we've had in the park system. This first one is all of our facilities. This includes the pavilions and the new John Klein room at Market Square, as well as the Touch House and the open pavilions and Pioneer Pavilion out here. If you'll notice the line at the bottom, that's the Pioneer Pavilion. We only offer reservations once a week at that facility, so we average everywhere between 28 and 32 reservations there each year. The Touch House was down slightly, but everything was up. The Market Square reservations, it looks like it made a huge jump. We changed the way we counted reservations a couple of years ago. We offered an entire square reservation. So example, Oktoberfest would count as one reservation. Well, we didn't think that was it didn't really represent what we were actually dealing with on the square. So we took away the entire square reservation, and everything is divided up now. So Oktoberfest may count for multiple reservations over the 2 weeks that they have it rented. Even doing that, we still went up on reservations this past year at Market Square. Almost all of those are special events that involve a lot of time and energy from Jennifer Krupa, who is our special events coordinator, as well as the maintenance staff that's out there helping with that. And then pool use. So over the last 9 years, we've kind of bounced around at Park Pool and Town Pool. We were up a little bit at Park Pool this past year, but down at Town Pool. One thing you'll notice, in 2023, we had a big jump out at Town Pool on use. That was the year that the splash pad opened. I had been thinking that it was going to make use go down. It actually did the exact opposite, and I've actually done this myself. You take your kids out there, they play on the splash pad for a little while, and then you go take them to Town Pool. After that newness has worn off, it's dropped a little bit, but I'm hoping it's going to level out and still be above where it was before the splash pad opened. And then our last slide is our RV park use. The RV is one of the things in the Parks and Rec department that actually covers all of its own expenses, so it's a good thing that we have this. We had some post-COVID highs where we were seeing absolutely record numbers in use. Over the last couple of years, though, we've had a lot more competition pop up, so I think we're going to be leveling off here around 13,000 nights a year. The total number of nights would be 38,000, so we're under half of that. Our highest occupancy was just a little bit above 50%. So that's my report for last year. I'm going to hand it off to Krista unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Andrea. Good morning, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces, so I know I've met most of you, but for those that don't know me, I'm Krista Wareham. I'm the Director of Finance, and I'm over utility billing and finance at City Hall. I wanted to first introduce my newest staff member. He started in November. If you want to stand, Tyler Hooper. Thank you. Tyler came to us from the city of Dalhart. So, and he's moved his family and his wife and kids here, so we're very happy to have him. Okay, first thing I wanted to point out, this slide here is just showing the finance page of our website. And if you go to departments and then finance and budget and taxes, for those of you that haven't been here, you'll see our adopted operating and capital budget, our most recently adopted for 2026. This is a digital budget book that we started a few years ago, so it's a lot easier and more interactive. There's more graphs and obviously less paper, so you can still get the PDF version as well when you go to the site if you want to use the PDF. But when you click on it, you'll get to a table of contents, and the City Hall, everyone at this city worked together to build this. Every department has narratives, they have their goals and achievements, and we have our city manager's budget message. I get information from Tim Lindberg on the demographic and economic information, but we have our budget summaries, and you can go to the appendix section for our policies, our debt schedules, investments, property tax history, things like that. So please go out there and when you have some time, take a look at it, because everyone puts a lot of work into it, and I'd really appreciate some feedback if you have a chance to take a look at it. Whoops. Okay, so I just want to mention where we left off in 2025. We had a budget of revenue of $71.7 million, and we came in stronger at $72.6 million. So 101% of budget on revenue. And expenditures, we came in under, came in at 90% of our budget of $78.5 million at $70.7 million. And the reasons for that, I've listed them on the chart. We had higher than anticipated sales tax, which is great. Interest income was good. And as Cliff mentioned, our development services group, we had higher revenues than budgeted for building permits, short-term rentals, and impact fees. And then on the expense side, we're always, unfortunately, we always are not fully staffed, so we have some salary savings. And then we also had some savings because of just the way the timing of the expenditures, especially the capital projects. We have some of those projects that carried over into 2026. And then I just wanted to point out that our stormwater and vegetation department had a large project that has been delayed, so that obviously didn't happen. So as you know, when your revenues are higher than your expenses, you have a surplus, and then that surplus goes into our fund balance. So this slide just explains what a fund balance is. It's a municipality savings account. It's not supposed to be used for recurring expenditures. It's used for emergencies, one-time projects, and cash flow stability. So you'll have your recurring revenues, and then you'll have your recurring expenditures. And your expenditures are your salaries, your utilities, and your maintenance and operations costs. Oh my goodness. Where is this? Okay. Did I miss one? Oh. Okay, let me try this again. Where's the best place to point it? Here. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna try this one more time, and I'm gonna have Sean take over. Okay. All right, these charts, for those of you that were involved in our budget workshops in May, June, July, in August, the chart here on the left, I know it's hard to see there from the back, but it's just showing our expenditures and our revenues. And when we were in our budget workshop, our expenditure line, as you can see, is like the orange line. And so our expenditures and versus our revenue line in the blue, it doesn't look good. And that's where we were in August, where we were looking at our recurring expenditures, our capital projects. Our expenditures are outpacing our revenues. So during our budget process in 2026, the chart on the right is where we actually ended up. 2025, as you can see over here, 2025 is right here. So our expenditures were budgeted higher than our revenues, but we came in much closer, as I discussed on the prior slide. And then in 2026, our expenditures are just above our revenues. We're about $400,000 difference. And just to point out, this is for general fund, not for the city overall. So we were able to shrink that margin between the revenues and expenditures by working with the departments, looking to see where we can find additional revenues and also try to control those costs. Try this again. All right, so key trends 22 to 26 for the general fund. Our personnel costs are 60% of our recurring cost. Our recurring revenues are growing at a slower rate than our recurring expenditures. Our coverage ratio is declining, so that you're looking at your fund balance and what you have available. So we've got to keep a careful eye on that. And then takeaways, action items. We need to keep watching this because we are at risk by looking at that previous chart and by 2029, where we're going to be having to dip into our fund balance. And then, so we want to control our recurring cost, and we want to find additional revenue streams where we can. And then we want to just keep working on those projections to make sure that we're able to keep up with the rising cost and keep everything in line. Okay, so for 2026, this is just a chart showing our sales tax trends. As of right now through December 2025, we're at 2.3 million. And you can see that we're pretty consistent from 23 to 26 with the revenues that are coming in for sales tax. Our big month is our sales tax receipts in February. We're always 2 months behind, so what we get in February is what was collected during our Christmas season. And then hotel occupancy tax for our tourism fund. This is just a trend line for those hotel occupancy taxes. We're at 1.7 million through December. Our budget for hotel occupancy is 6 million. And I didn't mention, but on the sales tax side, our budget for 2026 is 9.3 million. And that concludes my part of the presentation. Thank you all for your attention.
Okay, a lot of good information. Thank you, city staff. I've got it.
Okay.
Thank you, city staff, for compiling that information and presenting that. That's something we're probably going to continue to do every year. And again, we're about to give the fire EMS and police department year-end review. Again, a lot of data. That's really where this idea originated. So look forward to that presentation coming up sometime in the next couple of months also. At this point, I would love to answer any questions that any of you may have. We have a lot of staff in the room, a couple of council members with us. Anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
Just a question on beautification in your city, your downtown, the downtown city group that's getting together for Main Street program. As far as flower baskets, things like that coming up in the spring, being that we're not going to have any winter.
Are you asking if they are coming up?
I'm asking if that's still going forward.
So we have been meeting with the Native Plant Society that has also met with that group, talking about a landscaping project with native plants, a little bit lower water use, easier to maintain, maybe eventually transitioning into more decorative plants of some sort. That will be a council directive if they want to move forward with trying to establish that and maintain that. We've talked a lot, and Bobby Watson is with us. We've talked a lot, Bobby and I, about different Main Street initiatives. That is one of them. Trying to keep the sidewalks cleaner, trying to keep the streets cleaner, trying to make the sidewalks safer, just the entire thing a little bit more welcoming. So those are definitely on the horizon, but we have already visited with the Native Plant Society. They've put together a plan for different areas along Main Street. We'll probably start with an area as a demonstration project and build on that moving forward.
One more question. And this has to do with our codes that we're working on. With all the new developments and one thing going on, is there any way to add in that for as far as rain collection and or lineal footage of irrigation on all these new lots? Because they're pretty much all the same size lots, where we could regulate the amount of lineal footage of irrigation they can have, being that that's our biggest enemy as far as water usage.
Yeah, I mean, so that's going to be the beauty of the Unified Development Code, in that we're going to bring the knowledge of the experts that's done this in other communities to help design the regulations. And ultimately, the beauty of the UDC is not only developing the codes, but it's going to help us take the MGO system and our processes and better develop a tracking process to be consistent with that. Where I'm going with that, it's going to give us the ability to create that tracking and the ability to enforce those codes. And that's probably going to come in a combination of things. Our landscaping ordinance, our tree preservation ordinance. Where I'm going with landscaping, you're talking about, say, a commercial development, right? A lot of people just want to throw parking lots in and say, okay, here's the impervious surface ratio and the runoff. Do you creatively build in retention islands within the development to help do that, control runoff, and really balance every lot and every development to make sure it's consistent? So I hope that answered your question, but the point I'm making is the UDC is going to be very important in doing that, because we're going to rewrite those codes, and then we're going to be accountable in that every development is consistent, because the tracking system makes sure we're consistent, right, regardless of staff changes and whatever else.
I know somebody else raised their hand. Dr. Hammerson.
Thanks to the staff for the presentation. It was very informative. I was very pleased to see that the gap between projected expenses and projected income has narrowed so substantially. You'll notice that the cost in the city's budget is 60% for your personnel. Understandable. Of the several $1 million that were shown as coming in from various fees, how close does that come to actually covering the salary cost of the individuals who are providing those services?
Well, you saw the presentation that Cliff gave for development services. That department covers their costs through fees. I might have to turn to Krista to talk about both enterprise funds and general funds covering employee expenses. Krista, can you speak to that?
Thank you for that question, Dr. Hammerson. So just looking at our 2026 revenues versus our expenditures, and knowing that personnel is our largest expense, our enterprise funds, the utilities do a great job. They're self-sustaining, so they're able to cover. They must cover their expenditures. So what we're really looking at is general fund. And if you look at just police and fire, their budgets are almost half of the total general fund budget. So, and police department doesn't bring in revenue, obviously not much. Their revenue is $299,000, and their expenditures are $9.2 million. So, so we can't possibly, in general fund, the only way we can make sure that we're continuing to cover the payrolls of general fund is to look for additional revenue streams, because there's legislation, there's been changes with the property taxes, and there may be more coming. So we need to plan for that and look for other ways of generating revenue to be able to support our police, fire, and our other general fund departments.
I can understand that. The question I was having was, are we charging a high enough fee to offset the cost of the salaries of the individuals that are providing that specific service? So if, for example, in your water and sewer, you're doing that, that's great. If in development services you're doing that, that's great. I was just wondering whether or not we are charging enough to offset the cost of providing the permitting, the inspections and that sort of stuff.
Right, in development services, certainly we're covering those costs. And again, when you look at the general fund, the fund that funds the police department, fire EMS, parks department, street department, that's primarily property tax and sales tax. So you saw what the sales tax is doing. We're hanging in there on the sales tax. So really what we have to work with is our property tax, and as Krista mentioned, new sources of revenue. So we're looking at a couple of additional annexation areas that could add to that tax base. We're looking at the use of visitor contributed hotel and occupancy tax funding to supplement some of these departments that provide service to people outside of the county. We're also looking at parking, some kind of parking management system on Main Street as a revenue source. So we're continuing to look at different revenue sources, and we're very interested in the ones that don't result in more taxation for our residents. So we're working hard on that. In fact, we've already injected some of that additional funding into the budget. We'll be adding that in April during our mid-year budget amendment. So we're continuing to work on those different sources of revenue. But right now we're just a little bit short. And we do have to borrow from our savings account, our reserve funding, to balance the budget. A lot of times we don't have enough funding in the general fund to fully fund those general fund departments. That's the gap between the lines that you saw, but it is closing in. Yes, ma'am.
I guess just on that subject of the general fund and the money that is received from hotels, hotel tax, and short-term rentals. Can't some of that money be reallocated towards the general fund? Because obviously our law enforcement and fire department and everyone else are, extremely pressed with the tourism this town receives, so they're needed, they're necessary. So I'm not sure what percentage goes there, but maybe some reallocation can be considered from those funds, which is taxing on them.
So the use of hotel occupancy tax to supplement the general fund is strictly prohibited. We have to be very careful what we use that funding for. There are a lot of restrictions on that funding. So we've been having conversations with the folks that monitor and control that, audit those dollars and how they're used in budgets. And I think we're making some ground. So that's exactly the idea. 17% of the fire EMS responses in a year are for people that live outside the county. Our police department, I think the chief said we have 5 officers more than we would need just to cover all of our permanent residents within the city limits. So everyone in the room that's a city resident is paying for that, and we're trying to use some of our visitor dollars to supplement that and again keep that tax rate low or reduce that tax rate. So that's exactly our thinking. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Dana Rowan, city resident. I had a question on our water well fields. You showed some plots regarding, I think it was probably your observation wells, looking at the elevation of the water in these fields. Do you manage field to field, like say, well, this field looks like it's needs to be recovered a little bit, so you'll switch to another field to pull that out? And is there a process that you use to manage the draw from each field?
Yeah, certainly. So we look at that on a weekly basis. This year we did rotate a little bit. Historically, we've probably been doing about 60-40, 60% out of the Canal well field, 40% out of the Old San Antonio Road. And some of the logic behind that is we have been drier and we do see responses further east of town, which is where the Canal well field is, quicker after a rainfall event. And so, you know, the thought was we're gonna, that area of the aquifer is more prolific. I mean, there's no doubt about it, just the way the responses we see. And there's also a threshold we see once we get about 100 foot below the ground surface, it kind of levels off. And I don't know you would know better with your background than I, as far as a geologist. But working with the district a little bit, kind of evaluating those things. This summer, we did probably do a little higher percentage out of the Old San Antonio Road well field. So we shifted. We have 3 wells currently in Canal. We shifted to only using 2 of those more consistently. So we have rotated back a little bit more to our Canal well field just because of the last 60 days or so, seeing kind of the weather pattern change, unfortunately. Hopefully that'll kick back in. But yeah, we certainly look at that. We monitor that, work with Paul Babb at the district and you know, his team. So yeah, there's a strategy that we're looking at. Just to kind of look forward, again, we're working with a property owner right now on diversifying, I would say. Still looking at Ellenberger water, but kind of diversifying and taking some of the load off of both of the existing well fields to another area. So it's not like we have to have this water supply to continue providing to our customers and our residents, but again, it just spreads that out. So we're not just 2 primary well fields, but now we'd have a 3rd as well.
So it allows you to manage the other 2 that you have a little bit better if you have a 3rd source.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Anyone? I'm looking at Rosemary. She has no question. All right. Well, thank you for being here. Happy New Year to everyone. Have a great rest of the week.